Japanese Prime Minister PM Kishida has arrived in the Philippines for a two-day official visit in a bid to boost defence and security ties. Now, his trip comes at a time of heightened tensions in China-Philippines relations. Tokyo is expected to provide defence equipment to the Philippine military under a new aid framework. The two nations are also reportedly set to start talks on an agreement governing mutual access for one another's troops. Mr. Kishida will also be delivering a speech to the Philippine Congress, that's tomorrow, to address Japan's long-term policy on its Southeast Asian diplomacy. This will be the first ever speech made in Parliament by a Japanese premier. For more, CNA's Buena Bernal, she joins us live from Manila. Buena, what's the significance of the timing behind Mr. Kishida's visit? After all, we're seeing all of these ongoing tensions continually in the South China Sea.
Certainly a very timely visit by Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida to the Philippines, as it comes when there is, as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan calls it, a complex security environment since the end of World War II. And geopolitical observers and national leaders alike have noted what they've seen as a heightened global security situation. Now, like the Philippines, Japan has also been in maritime confrontations with the neighboring economic giant China. The coast guards of Japan and China faced off last month in the East China Sea near an area that Japan calls the Senkaku Islands and China refers to as the Diaoyu Islands. Similarly, also last month, Japan expressed concern over what it saw as a surge of tensions in the South China Sea following a collision between a China Coast Guard vessel and a Philippine resupply boat. Now, Japan is also perceived as part of a network of allies of the United States in the Indo-Pacific, a list which also includes the Philippines. In fact, this coming November 9, an exercise among the servicemen of the United States, the Philippines, South Korea, and Japan will begin. It's an 8-day training exercise dubbed Kamandag for improvement of the mutual capabilities of these servicemen. Now, Japan has always been a strong partner for the Philippines, such that 13 of the 28, that's almost half of the primary fleet of the Philippine Coast Guard, was built in Japan, 2 of which were commissioned in 2022, and those 2 are among the largest of that fleet at 97 meters. So you see Japan also as a top donor for the Philippines. In fact, between 2001 and 2020, the Philippines had, coming from Japan, the largest share of bilateral loans. And Japan also was the top overseas development assistance source in terms of bilateral sources for the Philippines. But beyond that, development assistance also now comes security assistance.
Buena, on the back of the heightened security tensions that you described earlier, what does the Philippines stand to gain from these closer military ties with Japan?
Well, already signed in February this year during the visit of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to Japan was further cooperation in terms of humanitarian assistance and relief operations in the Philippines. But what you're really looking at here is formal negotiations for what is called a reciprocal access agreement, which will allow for the movement of defense personnel of these 2 countries or between these 2 countries. That will also allow for the easing of some limitations for the movement of supplies alongside the movement of personnel. And that is notable because if that is signed in the future, the Philippines will become the first ASEAN member state with such an agreement with Japan. The United Kingdom already has such an agreement with Japan. And if you look at a similar deal called the Visiting Forces Agreement of the Philippines has that with only two countries, which is Australia and the United States, which means Japan will be among those countries with a similar agreement with the Philippines should that reciprocal access agreement be signed. Now, this visit by Prime Minister Kishida is part of a two-nation visit to Southeast Asia with the next leg in Malaysia.
All right, Buena, thank you very much for that. Buena Bernal there in Manila.